Everybody, welcome to Successful as Fuck, the show where we talk about all things success and stories, achievement, overcoming obstacles, and we dive into other people's stories. It's inspired by my book of the same name, which is coming out in September. But this week, on Thursday, is the pre-sale campaign. So please be watching for all of the fun materials that will come out regarding the pre-sale of the book. You do not want to miss this. It's going to be amazing. I'm giving away merch. Who doesn't want merchandise that says I am successful as fuck? I do.
Does
I
it
do.
say the word?
Well, I'll probably put the asterisk. Unless people, I want comments. If people want the
Right.
whole thing, tell me. I'll put the whole thing.
I love
These
it.
things have not been made yet. But depending on the tier that you participate in the campaign, there will be lots of fun merchandise for people. So if you have not received I'm giving away buttons. Of course, I grabbed one that doesn't have it. Anyways, they're in these cute little envelopes. Buttons that say successful as fuck. If you would like these buttons, they're the cute little ones that you can put on your purse or whatever. Message me on Facebook or on LinkedIn, and I will send some to you via the post office. We are here today with Carrie, and Carrie is an awesome individual who I get to be in a wonderful group with. And we are going to dive into her story. Carrie, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be on your fab show.
Yes, it is fabuloso, but it is fabuloso because we have cool people who come and be on our show. So I appreciate you being here. Tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us how you serve people.
Okay, I'm Carrie. I live in Mount Dora, Florida, which is very close, to Orlando. I am originally from Jacksonville, Florida, though, and I have been married. Our 17-year anniversary is Saturday.
Congratulations.
Not giving away my age, but I'm 40, so you can guess how much of a baby I was when I got married. Yes. And I have two daughters. One is 13, the other's 5.5, and that's joyful and fun all the time. Yeah. We're always happy in my house.
Yes.
And we have an awesome pug.
Yeah.
We have a pug. His name is Ollie, and he's 14, and he just shuffles around. But I'm a launch strategist and manager and a Kajabi specialist. So, and my business is named Virtual Simplicity. And what we do, we started in 2017, but what we do now is we help clients to create and design and launch their online programs with simplicity and ease. And so I've come up with this sort of like fun little formula called the Zen Launch formula, which basically my superpower is helping people have super calm, easy to flow within your like business plan launches. So taking away the like craziness and wildness that launches can bring into your life and making it not that as much as possible. That's
right. And for those who are watching that don't know what a launch is, it is very stressful. It is usually when you're releasing, sort of like we could use my campaign as an example.
That's a great example.
Yeah. So if you're releasing something or doing some type of event or something like that, then it's all the things that lead up to that event. So if I had been wise enough to hire Carrie for this thing, then there would have been all these little steps and things that I would have done in getting to the Thursday, which is the big day where it kicks off. And then my campaign goes for an entire month. So then there would be probably some post-launch strategy of things to keep it going. And so that is what a launch is. And so what Carrie's doing is alleviating a lot of stress, because as you can imagine, with so many moving pieces and technology and different people involved, there's a lot that goes into that. So it's really important. So thank you for the good work that you do, alleviating people's stress.
And
yeah. And I was going to tell you, I have 3 daughters, so I understand. And I have Boston Terriers, which are very similar personality to pugs.
Correct.
So yes. And I have a cat named Ollie. So there you go.
I love Ollie. He's great. He's just like an old man right now. So he just sort of hangs out.
I love that. Well, what we like to do on this show is chat about your story and just chat about, um, what you thought achievement and success looked like early in your life. And like early meaning, I mean, you can take it all the way back to elementary if you want to. I mean, I was going to be a physical therapist. Um,
I think I wanted to
but
be a flight attendant when I was in
oh,
elementary
yeah.
school. Yeah.
I don't think I would want to be a flight
Not
attendant
now.
now.
Oh my God. Are you
People are
kidding?
so
Woo!
belligerent.
Hell
Yeah.
no. But back
Yeah.
in the 90s,
Yes. It looked so
I
chic.
did.
Yes. Um, but tell me a little bit about that. Like when you first, like, let's say when you're 18, 19, 20, 21, right in the very first part of your adulthood, if you could have pinned down what you thought success was for you at that point when you were looking forward, because at that time you're just figuring out who you are and
Yeah.
you're like, oh man, if I could X, Y, or Z, that I would have made it. You know what I mean? Because you're just like, it's beyond whatever you could even imagine.
Yeah. Well, I might, my answer may or may not be disappointing. So
Never.
we'll see what everybody thinks, but it might be a common theme to other people's experiences. Well, my parents divorced when I was 21 or 20. And so when I was that age, they were separating. So, and I will say full transparency, I'm a 6 on the Enneagram, and one of my highest core values is security. So that has always, and responsibility is one of my number one strengths. So that sort of has always been there, even though I didn't know maybe innate outwardly that was the case, but it was always there on the inside. When you go through traumatic experiences, I think it revs that up a little bit, like your
Yes.
core needs, core desires, maybe even your core fears a little bit. So when I was at that age, I was raised by 2 baby boomers. And so it was ingrained in me, even in my high school years, that finding a good, secure job with good benefits and great retirement was the ultimate like achievement. So I actually took school initially started in music at music education and then switched to a psychology degree. And I didn't really do much with that, to be fair. I actually ended up teaching in public school.
So you
And
were like on track in the
Mhm.
beginning a little bit more with the music education.
Yeah, I was still in I was starting there, and then I enjoyed playing music, but I didn't love teaching it. It wasn't something enjoyable. So I had a degree in psychology from the school I went to and got a master's degree in education and was teaching while I was getting my master's. So I think for me at the beginning, I was more driven by success with relationship and maybe less by money. So I got married quite young, as I mentioned earlier. I'm on year 17 almost. And so I was 22 years old when I met my husband. And we got married when I was 23. So I was more driven to find security in that relationship area. And that was more what success looked like to me. Just to have a calm, normal,
Yep.
relationship and normal life and a secure, job that I didn't have to worry about was probably how I defined success in my early 20s and early adult years, probably.
Believe it or not, that resonates. You're the first person to bring that up, and that resonates so hard because, where is it? 24 years.
Okay, good.
Got married when I was 19.
I'm good. I'm not the only one.
And I look at people who get married in their early 20s and I'm like, oh my God, you're such a baby.
You're
And
so
then I'm like, oh my
brave.
God, I was 19.
I know. We talk about this now that I'm 40. My husband's 39. And I literally laugh because you don't think you're a baby when you're 23. But I
No, you're a
really
grown ass
wasn't.
adult.
We had no, I mean, especially my husband, but I didn't have a lot of adult life experience. He was my first real relationship that I took seriously. And so we really grew up together.
Yes.
We did not have, now we just laugh at ourselves. But at
Right.
the time, I really thought I was mature, which I was for 22, but.
Right. When we crossed that mark of like being together longer than we had, been adults or I mean people,
Yeah.
that was such a weird mark for me. And also like if I'm being totally honest, I mean, he's gonna watch this and so honey, I love you. But like he was the safest person that I ever dated.
Yep. Same.
And so it felt so natural because I don't know my Enneagram, but I would guess I'm somewhat like you, because in other things too, it shows that security is something that is super important. And I had had complete upheaval of my life.
Yeah.
Like my living situation and my family situation and all sorts of stuff immediately prior. Like I met my husband when that was happening. And then
Yeah.
I
Same.
like spent 6 months rejecting him because I was like, "You're just freaking me out with all your stability right now. I don't know what
Right.
all that is
You're
about.
like,
This can't be real."
yeah.
Um,
Right.
and
That's how I
then
felt too.
I like embraced it, and I was like, "Oh, this is real. Like you are a real person. You actually do want to be with me." And so I immediately wanted to lock it down and double that baby down because I wanted a baby right on top of it. Like I was
That's
like,
where we
yeah,
differ. That's where I was
yeah.
like, eh.
No, because I felt like, not because I wanted to lock him down, but because I wanted to like have that family. Like I was going to have the secure family.
Right.
I was going to provide that for me and my husband and my child. And not that I'm like a Susie homemaker, because it's like the complete
Oh
opposite
no,
of
me
that.
neither.
Yeah.
I totally get what you're saying. I was the same way. I told my husband the other day, literally, I said the only goals I've ever had for my kids were like a calm, peaceful, safe home
Yes.
where there's not tension,
Yes.
and a father that was going to be present,
Yes.
engaged, and that's his whole goal was to be a dad. That was one of his biggest life goals. He wanted to be a
That's
dad.
awesome.
So
That's
I knew
awesome.
that was immediately like, I watched his
Yeah.
dad and his grandfather as well when we were dating, and I was like, I knew immediately. I was like, he's going to be
Awesome. Yeah.
perfect. Now I waited
So,
till I was 27 to have kids, so
oh,
I was like,
good on you. Like, so
I'm not having.
we had one at one when I was 20, one when I was 22. So they're 23 months apart, and
Yeah.
they're gorgeous and beautiful, but like they're now 23 and 21, and they're like, what the hell were you thinking? Like
Oh
my
yeah.
21-year-old is a nanny of a 4 and a 2-year-old, I think, but they're 23 months apart. And
Yeah.
she called me one day, and my husband was sitting right here. She's like, just put me on speakerphone. She's like, what the fuck were you guys thinking? Like, she's like, this is really freaking hard.
It is hard. You're right. You are correct. It is hard. It doesn't matter how old you are. It is freaking hard. Mine are 7 years apart, and it was still hard.
Yes.
It was hard.
So we waited, and then we thought we were done, and then I turned 30, and I was like, all the reasons why we didn't want it, because we thought we would have another one when my middle one went to kindergarten, because
Yeah.
it was just too much with them, like, so but then that kind of came and went.
Yep.
And then it kind of got a little bit farther and a little bit farther, and we thought, okay, well, maybe we're done. And then I turned 30, and I thought, like, we have stable jobs, we could actually take a maternity leave, like we own our own home, like we're not in an apartment, like all these things kind of were
Yeah.
resolved. And it was scary, but we both were like, okay, yeah, let's have another baby. Best freaking thing ever. Like, I cannot say the gap is great, guys. Gap equals great. Like,
I
don't be
have had a
afraid of a
great
gap.
experience also.
Yeah.
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 I love my
So,
gap. I know there's some pros and cons, but
yes.
overall they're 7.5 years apart, and it's been pretty good.
Well, and so mine are 8.5 years for the middle and the baby, and she's not a baby, she's 12. She'd be mad if I told her she was a baby. But then there's 10.5 years. But what's really cool now that they're in their 20s is they get to be the cool aunts, you know what I mean? Like, but they're sisters. So she feels like they're her best friends in each in their own way, because they're very different personalities.
Yeah.
And so it's just a really cool thing. But yeah, that relationship level of success is, like I said, never been brought up, but is so, so true. And not a lot of people not a lot of people have that experience, though. And not a lot of people, very few people are still together. You know what I mean?
That's the other thing. Most of the people, that's just where I was at that time.
Yeah.
And I wasn't thinking about money as a success path for me at that time or anything else.
Yes.
I just was very focused on security. That was kind of what was driving me at that point.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
in love.
Yeah. Yes, security and love. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think, and mine was also just kind of survival because you're so young, you're not really totally set up yet to be able to even just support each other. You're kind of scrambling a little
Oh,
bit,
yeah.
and that
Pay the bills.
happens for everyone, but then you add another person on top of it and it kind of
Oh,
um,
for sure.
complicates things a little bit. So let's kind of move forward from the early marriage towards today. But what types of things happened along the way that may have, like, maybe one or two things that happened along the way that may have changed your view of a success and achievement from just security and love to maybe opening yourself up to a greater definition of what that might mean for you?
Yeah, I think when my second daughter was born was when a lot shifted for me. That was in 2016. And my other daughter was 8. We're about to be 8. She was like 7.5. She was just started second grade. And I had been teaching at that point for probably almost 10 or 11 years. And I was bored. I had hit that point, and teachers will know, anybody that's taught, there's a point where you hit a plateau and you can't really grow in your finances
Yeah.
anymore. And you have to decide if you're going to stay teaching or if you go down a different path towards administration or something else. And I didn't want to do any of that. And so I started in learning about, I think Phoebe, my youngest daughter, was probably 6 months old when I really started to look into the idea of, okay, maybe I could do like a side hustle. Like that's where it started, like just to bring in more money into our home. So that's where it started. Could I do something? I wasn't really using all of my gifts as well in teaching. Just you're limited on what you can and can't do in the classroom.
Right.
And so I started as a virtual assistant. I started my business literally in 2017 in the spring, around this time, 5 years ago, as a VA. And I had a friend who I had known from when I was into like Beachbody and stuff, and she was a business coach and she needed help. And so we had become friendly. And that's how I started, I started as just like $500 or $600 a month, just extra money, which is me. And I started to educate myself about what it meant to be online. I took some courses and learned and went into a coaching program, and it started from there. And I just kind of fell in love with it. And that was when my sort of mind expanded into there's other options out there. I didn't go into it thinking, oh, I'm going to start this business. Like I had zero business education, like none. Like it literally started as just like, oh, I'm going to explore this and see what comes
Right.
much. So I ended up scaling into becoming an OBM, which is an online business manager, and ended up bringing on, a couple of clients. So it was a couple of thousands of dollars extra. Again, it was just me, just supporting people in their businesses. And I did that for probably, a couple years, at least through 2019. And by 2019 was when I was like, all right, I really enjoyed it. And that was when I first explored the idea of even leaving teaching. Like that was the first, because I'm not a risk taker. Like that is not a thing that I do, but I do take calculated risks. So I started to really explore that and look into it. And it was around that time that I had already learned how to build out funnels and all this stuff in Kajabi, because all my clients were like coaches and other types of, they had these, and they all launched. So I learned all about how to launch and all about how to build out all the pieces, because I was the one really helping them to do that. I was the one that learned all, it was literally on the job training. Like I learned all about it and got into it, and then started offering support outside of just being an OBM, started offering like separate kind of project-based services. And then COVID happened. And when COVID sort of came about, it sort of like put gas on the fire a little bit. So all these people that were like, maybe one day I'll go online, like boom, everybody was just like flooded the internets, like and you probably remember it was crazy. Like it was, I didn't anticipate that. Let's just put it that way.
Right.
So all these people that were like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go online one day, speakers and doctors and all these other people that had these dreams, everybody decided to start going online because we were all sitting at home like, now what? And so
Right,
in
exactly.
2020, my other side of my business really grew, like building funnels, building out things, like launching people grew. And I had a 6-figure business, but I was still teaching full time. So I grew my business into this like 6-figure thing. And I was still teaching. It was insanity. I was really crazy. But that was sort of when things shifted for me, was when I was like, I could probably like do something else and like I just found myself in this whole process of growing this business. It was sort of crazy. Like I didn't go into it thinking, oh, I'm going to be a badass CEO. And it sort of,
Right.
I found myself accidentally. Let's put it that
Yes. Well, I've said this on the show before, but I always tell people, because I'm an accidental entrepreneur. I was featured in Bootstrappers magazine, and that was the title, was The Accidental Entrepreneur.
Very accurate.
And I say, if having like opening a business is like that it's your baby, then
Mhm.
I'm an episode of I didn't know I was pregnant that turns out okay in the end. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
when they're like,
You made
oh,
it.
I'm giving birth. Oh, but it's okay. We're excited about a baby. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like that's me. That's like I didn't know that I was going to go into business until
Uh-huh.
one day I was let go of my job, and then I'm like, oh, I'm in business, because I had been doing side work for friends who
Right.
had like asked me to do side work, and then suddenly it's like my job, and that
Yeah.
was just like so bizarre to me, and it took me some time to really embrace. I mean, it's almost good that I think that you had the runway of being able to like
Yes.
market test and see that it is like that it's launchable, that it's good, that you have a need for it, you have your minimum viable product there. Like there's a desire and demand for your services, and so then it's really like, okay, when am I really ready to like let this go, like
Yeah.
this other thing go? Because I mean, obviously having the additional income of teaching is big too, but then it's also like the security of like you're giving away benefits, and what your parents told you was the ultimate version of success, which is the secure, safe job with retirement and benefits. And you're going to go off on a wing. You're going to throw that all in the garbage, and you're just going to go and be a CEO of your own company, even if it is successful, even if it is making money and has shown to have demand. There is still a lot of risk into going into business for yourself, and you do give up a lot of those things unless you self-fund them, which we should all be doing. But yeah, it's very difficult to do, to walk away from the sure thing into something that could, for all intents and purposes, it could just go away tomorrow. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
But I think it's wonderful that you gave yourself that time to just like say, like, I'm bored and I want to explore this side hustle, and like, okay, this is kind of interesting. Like,
Mhm.
what if I did more of this, and then this kind of took off, and then you're like, well, snaps. I have to make a choice, because I'm there's only one me, and that you had the ability to say like, what makes the most sense for my life. I think that's really awesome.
Yeah. And it's funny it worked out too, because the last year I only taught part-time. It was after COVID had already it was 2020, 21 school year. So after all that, it was still crazy, but
Yes.
this initial wave of everything.
Right.
And it really worked out because we ended up deciding to move. My father-in-law passed away
Hmm.
early May of last year, and it was just a lot. Like there was a lot happening, and teaching was not in a good spot by that time. It had gone way downhill. So it was a real positive decision that I made. It was just a real slow burn for it to come to
Yeah.
fruition the way that it did. That decision I'd made.
Yeah. What does it look like for you now? What does success, and now you've got the business going, it's rocking and rolling, you're doing what you love. What would your version of success look like right now?
So I think it's really interesting in our space. There's a lot of discussion about especially in the female spaces. I'm not sure if this is the case for men, but I can only speak to women. But it's very common to see these and there's nothing wrong with this, by the way, if this is your definition of success. But there's a lot of talk about creating a 6-figure business, and then there's the talk about now I want to become $1 million earner. And it's heavily focused around or building a team to get you there. There's all these things, and it all centers around money.
Yes.
And there's nothing wrong with having financial goals for success, but that really burned me out last year. I had a really difficult year last year, and I have grown a lot and made a lot of really great choices and a lot of really terrible ones as I've grown my business, and just really came to see how what's involved. It's not just me, Carrie, that brings home all that money. There's a lot more to it than just everybody thinks I take all that money home. I think I'm that's not how business works, guys.
6 figures means nothing.
That's not
that's
6 figures
the top
in my
line.
personal payroll check. Okay. And so I just, I've learned quite a bit about the sacrifices that come with as you scale, but also there's some level of just responsibility. And I'm looking at, I've done a really hard, the last 3 months probably have been me really looking at everything and going, do I really want what comes with being an 8-figure business owner? And I was not really. So I'm lucky enough to be in a mastermind with some really amazing people. And there's a couple people in there who they don't make personally $1 million, but they're making a 6-figure salary, and they have a lifestyle that is very similar to how I would run mine. I'd have a pool in my backyard. I live in Florida, so this is a very Florida thing to say. Pool in my backyard. My kids are happy. We have options. That's the word I use.
Choice. Yeah.
So if my husband wants to change his job, he has the option to do that. If we want to go on vacation, we can do that. And it's not this huge financial sitch every time.
Yes.
If something happens to my car, no big deal.
No big deal.
I can pay for it in cash. So that's the word I use a lot when I think about what does success look like for me. It looks like my friend Kristen Ingram, and it looks like options. Yeah. That's how I look at it. And so I don't necessarily think I need to have an 8-figure business to get to that point. So I look at how I want to feel and how I would like to be in a place financially where I feel safe. And that's where that safety and security comes back to. What's going to make me feel safe and secure? I don't need, $10 million in revenue to do that.
Yeah, it's funny. I have one of my best friends took a manifestation course, and it was just really about less woo-woo and more affirmations and clarifying what you really, really want. Yeah. And then taking aligned action immediately towards that and taking on the emotion of that thing. So I called her and I was like, I need to manifest something. You're too far, because she manifested moving to Hawaii. And that bitch moved to Hawaii. I'm like, what the hell?
I get you. I have friends that do that all the time.
In 9 months, I want to move to Hawaii. She did it in 6. I hate you. Just kidding. I love you. But get back over here so I can rub myself against you and get some of that manifestation magic.
Stone.
Yes. So I said, I need to I was feeling really down yesterday. I was like, I need to manifest better for my life. She's like, well, what do you want to manifest? I'm like, I don't even know. Can I manifest manifesting? She's like, and here she's always looked up to me or whatever. And she's like, you have homework. And she's like, I want you to write down everything you want. Yeah. And she's like, and don't stop writing until you're done. And so I wrote down this. And then I wrote
Is that laminated?
This. Yes.
I love it. A teacher
I have a laminator.
I also have a laminator.
Everyone should laminate. And I like to write in permanent marker. And these ones are Bic Intensity, but my favorite pens and my favorite markers are Tool, which is TUL, best pens ever. But I write in permanent marker and then I erase with alcohol. So this is where those things, the options come into play. Like when I think about having to make it, because we have our ups and we have our downs in business. And right now for me, business has been slow and it starts to make me feel very anxious because I too value security. And so when business is slow, which PS, if anyone needs a virtual assistant and they would like one from the Philippines, I've got your back. Hit me up. I will help you out and that you will
Right.
help me
I
out
was
too.
going to say business has been slow for me and a lot of other people. It's a thing right now.
Yeah. So, but when I think about giving up, like driving my daughter to her theater classes or like allowing her to do theater classes because I have to work until 5 and that starts at like 3:45 or 4:30, like it literally moves me to tears. Those are the things
Yep.
that I am not willing to give up. I would
Yeah.
never want an 8-figure career because I don't want the responsibility that takes on. It would cause me anxiety. I just want freedom. I just want choices. I just
Yeah.
like, I don't, money really doesn't factor into success for me. It's like what money buys. You know what I mean? Like you were saying,
Yeah.
like
It's just
if
a
I wanted to
gateway
buy
or
a,
the car
yeah,
that
like
gets you there. Yeah.
if I want a car, like, and it doesn't even have to be, I mean, I have a Hyundai Ioniq hybrid. You know that I'm loving that with this gas price right now.
I was
Like
just going to say, my husband has a hybrid Honda
yes,
CRV, and he's like, I'm the
yes,
only person happy besides Tesla owners right now.
exactly.
I said, yeah, you're right.
I get 55 miles to the gallon and I am a
That's
happy.
amazing.
It's amazing. Cannot
Go
say
ahead.
it.
Well, you're in California, right? So you probably
I'm
like,
in Washington,
oh,
so
yeah,
it's
it's
not
just
as bad, but my daughter is in
bad.
California and I was there
Good.
last weekend and it was 6.79 per gallon.
Yeah. I
And I
never
was like,
complain
wow.
because ours is usually around like it was up, the highest I got to was like
Right.
445. But for here, that's like high.
Right.
So, normally it's like 250 back in the day. It's like
Right.
325. So that was a huge
Yes.
hit. But I'm always like, every time I hear people like from California, I'm like, I'm just going to be quiet.
It is what, yeah, it is what it is. But I just like think, for me, like I don't want that to matter. Like that
Yeah.
I'm
Yep.
taking this course from somebody who's in the advance, actually, Monique Gaffney. It's called New Money. And she was talking about like if you look at the gas prices and you say, oh, that's really expensive, then you're telling yourself that, or if you say things are expensive, then you're telling yourself that you can't afford them and you're limiting yourself
Yep.
instead. If it's an item, not gas. Like she says, if you're looking at gas, you say, wow, that means there's a lot of abundance in the world right now because they can choose to raise the prices. So that means that abundance could also come to me. She's like, it is what it is. Like you're going to pay it whatever. So feeling bad about it is not
Yeah.
going to help you do anything. And then if you look at other objects that you see that have a price that you're just like, she says, instead of saying that is so expensive, you say, I'm not willing to pay that much for that item.
Right. I just say
and
yet.
having that.
I've started
Yes.
saying yet to things. Like I've been very concerned that I'm pushing my money mindset stuff on my children. So I'm always like, we can't afford that yet.
Yes.
Or we can't do that today or something like that. Has helped a lot. The same as you, because it's like
Yes.
I'm trying to reframe and retrain my brain.
Yes. I've
From
been
using those
saying
words.
too, we're prioritizing our money in other areas right now.
Yeah.
Like then
Yeah.
it's just like and
Yes.
because what's so sad to me is like my 12-year-old will say, Mom, are we poor?
Oh my God, we are rich, babe. I always
And
tell her, like, we are not
I
poor.
was like, honey,
The opposite of that.
no. She's like, well, I just see you upset about, money or, here, this or that. And I'm like, listen, so she doesn't want me to buy her anything. This
That's
child
how
is the
my
most
13-year-old is
humble
too, and I'm like, "Oh my
child.
God, have I ruined you?" Because I
Yes.
don't want you to worry about that. And she acts the same way, and I think it's because she picks up on
Yes. Our own
conversations that
stress.
her dad
Yes.
and I have
Yes.
about our budget or what we're preparing for and
Totally.
whatnot. Yeah.
And so I have told her, listen, I will never offer to pay for something that is outside of our means.
Correct.
I will
Agreed.
let you
Same.
know that we have to wait on that. Like
Mhm.
the answer is yes, but we have to wait.
Mhm.
And I'm never going to put ourselves in a financial bind by buying you something. So you should always say yes. It's okay to say yes. But I think what I tried to do with my kids was give them a realistic look at money so that they wouldn't be so shocked, because I had no financial education.
Yeah.
And what I did, I think, was twist it and make it like scary for them about
Mhm.
credit, scary
Mhm.
about, like because we got into a lot of credit card debt and things like
Yeah.
that. So now my daughters are afraid of credit cards. And I'm like, oh crap, because you need it to
Right.
build
Well,
credit.
that's the thing. Is like we have credit card debt right now, and we've been in, we were raised that credit card debt was terrible. So
Yes.
that was how I was raised. I'm like, well, now that I'm in business, I'm like, that's not, there's ways to use credit
100%.
for your benefit if you are disciplined and responsible. And so there's a way to do it in the right way. It's avoiding them is just going to perpetuate this like thing that isn't real. So it's like money.
Yes.
Somebody told me money is just energy. It's like it doesn't have any, it's neutral energy. It has no like positive,
Mm-hmm.
nothing. It's just, it's what you put into it is what it's going to float around. So
Yes.
good, bad,
Absolutely.
scary, whatever you put in there is what it's going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I just think, yeah, it's so interesting that everyone is so obsessed with six figures. And I cannot stress enough, as somebody who has earned six figures or 100,000 or more than $100,000 means nothing in a
It's a
business.
stepping
There's a,
stone.
it's a, well, and even there's a top line, which is mine is off top line, and there's a bottom line. And everything in between is what you have to spend to earn that top line. And
Yep.
what you take home is not even the bottom line. You have to leave money in the business and reinvest in the business. And so if you're making six figures at the top, you're not taking home six figures. It's not like you're getting a W-2 from a job. And
No, not at
so,
all.
but that doesn't mean that financial success isn't within your realm, but
Right.
to get so obsessed around this number is just pointless. Like, look for these quality of life things. Make the list of the things that are most important. I'm not done yet. Like, I still have room on here, and then I may have more. You know what I mean? Like, and like, I'm trying to think of, I want to help my daughter buy her first house.
That
Like,
would be fun.
you know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like,
My
even
mom
if
did
that
that for
means
me. My mom did that for us.
co-signing, or like whatever it might be. Like, I want to help I want to help build my kids credit. And so I've done that with one child, because I was able to put her as an authorized user on a card, and they ran her social number, so now that card shows up on her credit, and
That's
so
good.
she's been able to build credit. Like, I want to do those kinds of things, but that
Yeah.
has nothing to do with my earnings. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so,
Exactly.
and really has very little to do with money.
Mhm.
It's the intangible that we do. So, okay, well, what I wanted to do next is just ask you, if you were to look forward 20 years and look from that 20-year mark, look backwards and say you had reached your legacy, your legacy goal was. What is that legacy goal that you have, that you would be feeling accomplished and amazing with in 20 years if you were to go to that point?
Well, I think for me, there is some financial elements to this. So I do
Yes.
want to be in a place where I am credit card debt free. I don't have a problem having a business credit card, however, just being able
Right.
to use it in the right way. So that's a part of that legacy, is not being like enslaved to crazy, like ridiculous APR,
Right.
all that interest stuff that comes with. So that's a huge part of it. But just being able to leave my kids with a financial, like, something that I can leave behind with my business for them would be great. And they don't have to work in my business, but just being able to leave something behind for them. Like my grandmother and my mother were both business owners. And so they left a legacy for me to feel like I am capable of, stepping up and doing something for myself and
Mm-hmm.
being independent and strong as a woman, which in those days was very difficult for my grandmother, especially, and even my mom in the 80s. But for my kids, just to set a good example for them, that's really important. But also to be able to leave them with some sort of assets that they can feel like if it's selling a business when I want to retire, or if it's, allowing one of my kids to work in it or whatever, that would be amazing to leave to them. That would be great.
Yeah.
Ultimately, leaving a lifestyle legacy is more important. So having a lifestyle that we're living that is ideal for everybody in our family. So we don't feel like we have to, we get to. That's
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, before we wrap, I always ask every guest one question, and that is, what is the best piece of advice that you've ever been given? And it can come from anywhere.
I have a funny one. It actually came the last probably 4 or 5 years I always was gifted indoors, but last 4 or 5 years, I taught gifted students primarily in the elementary school I worked at. And one of the movies that we would show them all the time was this movie called Meet the Robinsons. And the theme of that movie is keep moving forward. And that became one of my 2 mantras that I use. The other one came from my husband's dad, which is my husband actually gave me the other one. I'm doing the best that I can. So that helps me in the present. But also, mindset becomes such a huge thing as a business owner. And there's so many times where you will get caught spinning because of insert anything that can happen on any given day. And so the other one really helps keep moving forward, really keeps me reminded that I just have to continuously take actions. Like, business is slow right now. It's not been as busy as it was in the past, and it's not dead. It's just slow. And so that what actions can I take to keep myself moving forward? But also I'm doing the best that I can. And so it's like they really kind of work together to keep me. It honestly is probably one of the reasons why I'm where I am right now and didn't give up on it a million times.
Right. Yeah, because we want to. It's hard.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, Carrie, this has been awesome. Thank you so much and thanks for hanging out. I know we ran a little bit over time, but I love the synchronicities. And I think that it's so important to have these conversations about um, finding what makes you tick, finding what's most important to you, and then like sculpting your life around those things. And then allowing that to mean success for you. That's the most important thing is like, are you doing the things that bring you joy? And then are you moving forward towards what will bring you joy and the legacy that you want to bring? So I thank you so much for sharing those words of wisdom with us.
Thank you for having me. It was amazing. I appreciate it so much.
And that's it for us, guys. If you would like to connect with Carrie, especially if you are a coach or consultant who is launching soon or thinking about launching and needing strategy, we do have all of Carrie's information in the show notes. So I really would encourage you to reach out to her. Please be watching. I'll be unintentionally launching this week. I have shows every day and I didn't plan that. But yeah, so Thursday's the big day. I'll be counting down. You'll be participating because it's going to be lots of fun. And we thank you all for sticking it out with us, and feel free to drop any comments in the replay. We would love to answer those. Both Carrie and I will be watching out for that. And we thank you for joining us. We'll talk to you next time.